Hi, I'm Alec Beane.
And I'm Kyle Laidlaw, and today we'll be telling you who to start and who to sit for Week 7 of fantasy football.
Before we get into the starts for this week, take a look at how we did last week. Not too hot, but we're looking to bounce back this week.
All right, now we'll jump into the starts for Week 7. My first start is going to be Terry McLaurin. He's going up against the Giants defense this week, and they just let up 20 points to Stephon Diggs last week. McLaurin's coming off a solid week with 11 targets and 14.1 fantasy points. I know he's got a history of streaky performances in fantasy, but I like the matchup this week enough to put him in the wide receiver 3 or flex category.
For my first start of the week, I'm going with Kenneth Walker. He's been going off all year. He's not having a sophomore slump like most people expected him to. He's averaging 18.3 points, which makes him right in the top 10 for the running backs for fantasy. He's the clear RB1 in Seattle. He's a great matchup against Arizona, who's ranked 30th in defense against the run. So I'm expecting a big week from him. Expect a big boom from Kenneth Walker.
All right, my second start of the week, you're going to love this, Sam Howell. He's also got the Giants this week. Giants are a middle-of-the-road defense against QBs. You're not really expecting elite output from Howell, but he's been relatively consistent. He's had a few bad games, but he's been relatively consistent overall. Not expecting big output from him, but he's a good streaming option, so I like him. I like starting this week.
For my second start of this week, I'm going with Brandon Ayuk. This is due to the fact that Debo was hurt. If Debo wasn't hurt, I'd say he'd more borderline start sit depending on who you really have as a wide receiver. He's a true wide receiver too, but if Debo is hurt and he's listed as day-to-day right now with a shoulder injury, seems pretty serious, so Ayuk will be the clear wide receiver 1 this weekend. Minnesota's defense, they're not going to really know what to do with him. They've been pretty lackluster this year. He's the number 18th ranked wide receiver as a wide receiver 2. So I think that speaks a lot about who he is as a player. I think Purdy is going to be feeding him the ball, and with that, I think Ayuk's going to have an explosive week.
All right, now on to the sits for Week 7. My first sit is Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. Johnson's been on the IR since Week 1 after injuring his hamstring, and as a result, Pickens has seen an increase in target share and has produced some good fantasy weeks. But now with Johnson coming back to the lineup, and they go up against the Rams defense this week, the 4th best defense against wide receivers, volatility from Kenny Pickett under center does not help their outlook either, so I'm sitting both of them this week against a solid Rams defense.
I was wrong last week about him. Can't be wrong again. Sitting Jared Goff again this week. I know last week I said to sit him, and he put up 22 points. He's got a harder matchup this week, though. Last week he faced the Buccaneers. It's a little different than facing the Ravens, who are currently 4-2 and at the top of the AFC North. They have arguably a top 5 defense. If not, they're most certainly top 10. They're ranked number 2 against quarterbacks this year. Goff is on the road. I think Goff is due for a bad week. With that, I'm sitting him.
All right, now my second sit of the week is Kyle Pitts. Last week, Kyle Pitts caught a touchdown, which has probably got to be one of the rarest fantasy occurrences at this point. And that's now the second week in a row he's outscored his fantasy projection. But this week he's got the Buccaneers defense, which is a middle-of-the-road defense against tight ends. But I don't like the way his matchups look for this week. I think that 3 weeks in a row of outscoring his projection is extremely unlikely. So I think you're sitting Pitts this week.
I think I'm going to shock some people here. Probably going to hear a lot of it. But I'm sitting Raheem Mostert this week. And I know what you're thinking. He's probably the number 1 ranked running back after this week. But if we take a look at his schedule, he hasn't played many teams with a top defense. Bills are the only team with a legit defense that he's played, and he's put up 5.5 points against them. Eagles have a top defense in the league, have the 4th ranked fantasy defense against the run. I think he's going to cool off this week, and with that, I'm going to sit him.
All right, that's all for Week 7 start sit. Am I hearing that correctly? You hearing that too? Is that a celebrity start sit appearance from Jordan Rosenthal?
Oh my God!
What's going on, everyone? I heard we need some start sit opinions, and I'm here to help. My start for this week, Roschon Johnson against the Las Vegas Raiders. Donta Foreman can't play football. Darrington Evans isn't a real person. Roschon Johnson coming back off a concussion, hyped up rookie, should get a lot of work. Hopefully score a touchdown. My sit, Pat Freiermuth coming off the IR. It's hard to sit a tight end, especially one with a recognizable name. But I don't trust Kenny Pickett. I don't trust the Steelers offense. I don't trust Matt Canada. Wait a few more weeks for the Muth to become Luth. that's going to do it for this week's start sits. I know I'm definitely starting Raheem Mostert, but we'll see how that works out for Alec. We'll see you next week.